Welcome to this moment of time-space to be together with the 13 Moon Mystery School and Priestess Presence offering of the 13 Moon Oracle cards and in-depth looking at each one of these cards. Today, obviously, in all this cascade of pink, is the Goddess of Love. So get yourselves comfortable and ready to really receive this transmission, because whatever the words are, it's always frequency and vibration that really are impactful and catalyzing to you. So please know that, and that if you need to do anything to get more present, to take, we'll breathe together for probably a minute. If you need to get water, use the restroom, whatever it is to make you fully present here and now, please do that. And in the meantime, the rest of us will enter into a quiet breathing together, conspiring, as they call it, breathing together to create the alchemical cauldron of transmutation in this archetype together through our breath, through the simplicity of holding an intention together, of working with this archetypal energy, honoring it, blessing ourselves in it, dunking ourselves in the dye vat of this beautiful pink frequency, really breathing deeply all the way down to the bottom of the belly. And emptying out anything that would keep you from being present, thoughts, expectations, anything that might in this moment impede you from being utterly present to this moment. Really breathing that out. Hopefully having turned off your cell phones and your emails and everything, so you're not getting a staticky transmission, so you're getting a direct transmission without all the interference of the modern world interfering with that reception process. So breathing out anything that would impede that, and breathing in this beautiful pink light, breathing it in on the in-breath. And knowing that as you work with this material today, that you have the inner rewind button, you have the pause button, that as you listen to this transmission, if something absolutely pings you and becomes very alive or gives you electrical tingles or alert you in some way that this is important for you, then stop, push your pause button, and really sit with what that one sentence is, that one part of the transmission, because oftentimes there's just one thing that is meant to absolutely impact you, and that will be making itself known in a variety of ways that I know you've been training with feeling in your body some kind of a body signal that says this is important, listen up. Sometimes that's a ping in the ear, sometimes that's a feeling of heat or electricity, a feeling of expanded perception, many different ways that your guidance says listen up to this, feel into this, really pay attention to this. So developing those body signals, especially in this archetype where the tool is the senses, is very important. Let's begin from this place, and we'll go very deeply and slowly. In a culture that has done virtually everything it can to squeeze the immense power of this archetype of the Goddess of Love into a shrinky dinky do pink Barbie doll version who is made to please, to look good, to be polite, to serve, to disempower herself by negatively comparing herself to all other females. Well, it goes without saying that we have a lot of reclamation work to do here in this archetype. This first archetype of the goddess of love, even in its construction, shows you that the perceived perfect body that this culture has jammed down the throats of all females in every possible conceivable media absolutely is impacting every female as we speak. It is impacting each. Sorry, I had to turn off my own thing went off. Don't do that. It shows you the maliciousness of the media, that we have totally bought in to the program of the quote perfect body type. And it is absolutely essential that we take back our power as female beings, recognizing that it is actually a courageous act to wrest back our power by simply loving our bodies just as they are. Now, imagine, no matter what age, no matter what size, when every media possible has maliciously created and sustained an unattainable image of beauty. Really take that in. I mean, you're being pummeled with it on a daily basis in every media, that your body is not perfect. And believe me, even supermodels are miserable with their bodies because they've bought the program too, of the way it's, you know, this or a little dabble of cellulite or whatever. I mean, to really take back our power by loving our bodies just as they are is an act of real courage. When was the last time you looked in the mirror at yourself and said, I love you, body, just the way you are? When was the last time you didn't try and skip by the mirror as fast as you could and slip into your clothes so you didn't have to look at that part of your body you really dislike, your fat thighs or whatever you've told yourself is not accurate with your body, not beautiful with your body as it is? I really want to encourage you to spend more time in front of a mirror, really loving your body, giving your body a chance to feel what it really means to be loved by you and not judged and pushed away and being revolted by when you try to put on a new pair of pants and then you go, oh no, look at those thighs. Every time you say things like that to body consciousness, it registers and it causes so many dis-eases because you're not loving the vehicle that you live in. I know each of us is so unique. I, who run a lot of archetypal energy, would have fried and died by now if I were a skinny mini. And I have tried off and on and lost 80 pounds here and there all my life. Weight has been a very big issue for me. And in this section of my road, I gave it up. I just said, I know that my body functions best with this extra weight on it because otherwise I would be frying. And that's why every time I would lose all the weight, it would come right back on. So please, please really talk to your body and find out what is ideal for you, not for what the culture has to say, but for you. That will be different for every single one of you. When you finally recognize that loving your body is the foundation for taking your power back from competitiveness from insecurity and obsessive focus on outer rather than inner beauty, then you'll give that immense power back to the authentic expression of self. When you finally recognize that no matter how many lifetimes it takes to learn this truth, at some point you will recognize that unconditional love is actually the only power there is. Really get that. So some lifetime or the other, you will recognize that the only power there really is unconditional love, no matter what the appearance is on the screen of life. Love is the glue that holds the universe together. Now, without it, reality would literally dissolve into unformed matter once again. God, you want to talk about power? That's the power of unconditional love. So let's roll up our sleeves and dive into unconditional love head first by learning to value simply feeling, responding to feelings, and beautifying with them. So what does that really mean? To feel your feelings, to respond to your feelings, and to then choose to beautify all of life with those feelings. This is the quest of the goddess of love, of this archetype, to exalt the feelings, to exalt the senses, to exalt what it is to be feminine beings is the point of this archetype and this particular energy. So we have basically been brainwashed by Western culture to live in our minds, to be safe and so forth. And this is a call to move back into your feelings deeply this moon, to really, really honor what you are feeling and not stuff it and not be polite and not be nice, but to truly express your feelings. And the archetypal question that I would ask for you to really deepen with this moon is, in a world that has stroked you for giving up the power of navigating your life with your heart and feelings, to live in the apparent control and safety of the mind, what would it take for you to actually shift your lensing of awareness back to its natural state of heart and feeling navigation? What would that take for you to move back into your natural state of feeling navigation and navigation with your heart? What would that look like in your life? How would your life outpicture differently if you were doing that? Really really deeply consider that as a soul inquiry this moon, because in actually making that shift, I have to tell you, your life would be extremely different than the cultural lensing of living from ego mind that is presented as normal in this culture. Believe me, it is not normal. And we have to start questioning normalcy and what that actually is as a soul. So this moon, I invite you to practice, not to think about, but to actually practice unconditional love. That means offering love without any conditions. Imagine that for a moment. We have been so railroaded with love has this conditions and then this insurance policy and that rider and this contractual agreement. No, love unconditionally. Feel into saying this statement to people in your life. There is nothing you can do to make me love you. And there is nothing you can do to make me not love you. I just love you. Really grok that. Really feel into that. There is nothing you can do to make me love you. And there is nothing you can do to make me not love you. I just love you. I want you to imagine yourself saying that to the various people whom you have said in the past in your life that you love, and to see what the difference of outpicturing actually is. From that, being able to say that, imagine if there were absolutely no conditions to your love. No, I'll love you if you get the laundry done and bring home a big paycheck. I love you if you blah, 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 fill in the blank. Imagine if there were no conditions to your love for a moment. Then when you loved and you wanted nothing back in return, that is, there were no strings that you didn't need to manipulate to get what you think you want. Imagine that. Imagine that. In your feeling body, imagine that. Feel into that. And this moon, it is a practicum for expressing that kind of unconditional love. And as you do, you will see the world magically reconstellating around you, as all things in this universe only desire to be unconditionally loved. As you practice genuinely loving in that way, the kind of love that is will naturally be mirrored back to fulfill you. As you give up the crimped and limited version of conditional love with this condition and that condition, that we've been enculturated to think is the real thing, real unconditional love will have no recourse but to come rushing in like a dam bursting its banks, as that is the nature of unconditional love. I challenge you to try that for just this moon, one moon in your life, and to really see the difference in the quality of your existence here. The second card in the 13 Moon Oracle is the card of the Vesica Pisces, as you can see, and the word on the card is fulfillment. And you can see the Vesica Pisces that's created, that shape like an almond in the center, that is made from two overlapping circles, taking one circle and overlapping another, and you get the sacred third of the Vesica Pisces, which you can easily see this sacred geometry's connection with the female aspect of creation. Fulfillment is implied in actually being fully present in the present moment. Now, really take that in. Fulfillment is implied in actually being fully present in the present moment. Each moment is actually complete and fulfilling in itself if we are present to notice it. If you are trying to fulfill yourself, believe me, it will elude you. For as you fill one desire, another unfulfilled desire will simply arise right behind it and say, fill me, fill me, fill me, fill me. It's a continuous process. To live in the striving to fulfill yet another desire, it's like putting the present moment on computer hold. Does that give you an idea? How many times have you been put on hold when you're waiting on a call? That is exactly what it is to live striving to fulfill yourself. You're putting yourself on hold. And with equally uncomfortable results. If you want to be more fulfilled, be willing to genuinely look at what you do that appears to keep you from being present, available, from literally inhabiting your life. Let me just say that again. If you want to be more fulfilled, be willing to genuinely look at what you do that appears to keep you from being in the present moment, available, and from literally inhabiting your life. Is that actually fulfilling? You don't have to look too far when cell phone text chains are jangling as you're drinking a double latte while typing an email. Now, is that inhabiting your life? Is that actually fulfilling? To really step into the goddess of love, you're going to have to ask yourself some really hard questions. Am I fulfilled in this? Have I bought a program that says I have to do this in this way in order to be okay? What about my fulfillment? What about inhabiting my life? Hard question. To be genuinely fulfilled as a human being requires intimacy. And intimacy requires present moment awareness. And present moment awareness requires vulnerability. That is, I'm defining vulnerability as the willingness to risk and breathe through any uncomfortable feelings that arise in the moment that they do in your life. Vulnerability is generally defined as something negative or guilelessness or foolishness or those kinds of things, and it's not at all. Vulnerability is just the willingness to risk and breathe through whatever uncomfortable feelings arise. So notice the triage of that. To generally be fulfilled as a human being requires intimacy, and intimacy requires present moment awareness, and present moment awareness requires vulnerability. That is, breathing through any uncomfortable feelings that arise in your life. And we've been trained to think that others will disconnect from us and not love us if they knew X about us. Ooh, don't be vulnerable. If you're vulnerable and say that stuff, they'll stop loving me. Ooh, better not do that. That is how we have been trained. We've been trained to avoid vulnerability by living in our minds in a limp attempt to remain safe. But the sad truth is that vulnerability actually equals connection. Feel that. Rather than being a bad thing, vulnerability actually equals connection. Divine connection, vertical, horizontal, personal, all connection. So the sad truth is that we've been trained to avoid this vulnerability, but to not make the conscious choice to be vulnerable and to love wholeheartedly with no guarantees. And that's the risky part. Means you are choosing to live a half-life. And how can fulfillment, actual soul fulfillment, be found in that? To not make the conscious choice to be vulnerable and to love wholeheartedly with no guarantees means that you are, in essence, choosing to live a half-life. And how can fulfillment be found in that? You're going to have to start asking yourself those kinds of tough questions. The sacred geometry, as I said, for this archetype is the Vesica Pisces, the two overlapping circles that makes the fulfillment of the sacred third. Be willing to look deeply at the issue of whether you're really willing to risk being vulnerable with others in order to have the intimacy and fulfillment that inhabiting each moment creates through being actually present in your life. And here is the archetypal question that I want you to really entertain in consciousness this moon. What would have to concretely change in your life for you to actually be more present, more available within your life? What would have to change for you to be more present and available in your life? Really start asking yourself questions like this. If you want a higher quality of life in fulfillment, you're going to have to ask yourself this kind of question. So I challenge you to make a commitment this moon to unhook from the cultural addiction to checking texts, cells, and email messages for a very specific amount of time every day. Now, I'm not asking you to unplug for the rest of your life or all week. I'm saying setting aside a period of time, however brave and courageous you are, whether that's 15 minutes or an hour. Oh my God, imagine that. Unplugging from everything, turning off your phone at a certain time, or whatever you can do to bring a real pattern into your shift and your change. I'm really challenging you to do that. A friend of mine, one of my sisters here, does Shabbat on Friday night, and she turns off her phone and her computer and her emails and does not check anything until the end of Sunday. Now, that is commitment. And I'm not asking you to have to go cold turkey like that. I'm just saying, will you commit to 15 minutes? Will you commit to an hour a day and to it? And see what the difference in the quality of your life and fulfillment actually is. That is the invitation. To honor inhabiting your life by being more present. What is actually occurring in it and what you are actually feeling, so that you can genuinely be fulfilled in responding to your feelings and to those of your loved ones around you. And you might want to bring the frequency of pink into your environment as a reminder to support you in becoming more fully alive and present, and thus fulfilled. I truly encourage you to consider strongly moving authentically in your feelings. Most of not being in the present moment has to do with avoiding feelings. You don't want to feel how empty you feel. You don't want to feel how overworked or tired or exhausted you are. And so you stay unpresent through all sorts of strategies, and you stay out of your feeling body through all sorts of strategies. I'm calling you on that. I'm over 70 years old, and I'm saying life is short, beloveds. I'm asking you to make a practice somehow of being more present in your life, more in the present moment, to set time aside to do that if that's necessary with the fullness of the way you have your life scripted presently. Make time for life. Make time for unconditional love. That's my challenge to you. The third card from the 13 Moon Oracle is the Expand card. And as you can see, it looks pretty delicious, doesn't it? I mean, it looks really yummy. It's meant to. The senses are so much more than they seem. They're actually multi-dimensional receptors. Get this. Your senses are actually multi-dimensional receptors. They continuously receive an influx of resonant information from the universe that the mind simply decodes and interprets. The sense is far from only being interpreting senses impressions, open us to holographic awareness and divine connection and interface. It's no wonder this is the sacred tool card for this archetype. Your senses are like antennae that are interpreting the influx of resonant information that's coming in from the universe at all times. So far from just tasting that strawberry, when you taste that strawberry, you have access by being utterly present with it for the influx of resonant information to be given through that taste, to be given through that sound, to be given through that touch. Your senses are very powerful tools, and that's what we're focusing on in this moon, in this expansion process. The senses can be seen as the antenna with which we receive and ground the divine impulse. In the divine feminine, we recognize and then honor that we are designed as human beings to evolve through the senses, not in negation of them. The human system is designed to evolve its consciousness through the senses rather than in negation of them. This is a major shift in the way our culture holds reality. Just stop and really take in how different everything is if you all of a sudden recognize that your evolution is happening through your senses, through your enjoyment, your fulfillment in this lifetime. What a concept. It's one change in perception. Everything we've been enculturated with as women, that sensory pleasure should be experienced as raw. Imagine that. That's been our programming. The senses are intended to exalt and expand our awareness, plain and simple. In the divine feminine, and I'm going to read this twice because it's very hard to take in the first time, so really listen acutely. In the divine feminine, the bliss that arises from desire is intended to expand the mind so that limitations are overcome. Whereas the sensory pleasure that comes from contact with desirable objects can narrow attention and simply lead to obsession for more and better pleasure. Now, that's a critical distinction. In the divine feminine, the bliss that arises from desire is intended to expand the mind so that limitations are overcome. Whereas the sensory pleasure that comes from contact with desirable objects, and it doesn't say will, it said can, narrow attention and lead to obsession for more and better pleasure. In other words, without expanded awareness, the senses can lead to what might be experienced as entrapment in form, which is why many traditions steer you away from the senses, because it's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. If you are only looking at things as objects of desire and looking for more and more and more and better pleasure, then you're narrowing your awareness. But if you are using the senses to open up and expand your awareness and expand senses, then you're using it for spiritual evolution. And you will see marked changes in your awareness as you do that with full consciousness. Continual expansion of awareness is the focus of spiritual evolution. So bringing attention to how you use your senses as tools in that process of expansion is a valuable focus of time and awareness. How wonderful. You can actually give yourself pleasure and delight and bring attention to how to use your senses as tools. What a great opportunity. So my archetypal question to you in this card of the 13 Moon Oracle of the expansion card is, ask yourself right now, how open is my heart? Really feel your heart. Put your hand in your heart chakra and feel and say, how open is my heart right now? Really feel that. And now close your eyes and imagine someone or something that you absolutely adore. That may be a dog, a cat, a beloved one. Just really get them in your visceral, sensory inner world. And imagine looking at their face. And the adoration that pours out of your heart when you think of them. Your favorite child, whatever it is, your grandchild, that just makes your heart absolutely blast open when you think of your adoration for them. And now feel your heart again and notice the difference in its openness. Notice the difference in your openness after you've expanded your awareness in adoration. It's a critically simple, direct experience, but absolutely important that you recognize it. Because to become a sensory adept requires an entry position of an open heart. As vibrationally speaking, an opened heart chakra is the master switch to all channels of perception. Folks, an open heart is the master switch to virtually all channels of perception. And thus, you become open to multidimensional awareness as you are open in all those channels and senses, and in your heart being open, you thus become available to universal interface and divine interface. What I'd like you to consider as a practice this moon in this card, in this expansion card, is to recognize that each sense is a discrete channel of perception. This moon, I'd like you to set aside practice time to expand and enhance and bring more fully alive and online each discrete sensory channel. Now, does that sound fun? Homework? Fun homework. Kinesthetic or touch, scent, olfactory, gustatory or taste, auditory, hearing, or visual, seeing. Make a separate time session to explore each sensory channel to see which one you are most developed in and which ones need more support to open and expand into. Each of us has a very specific lensing that occurs due to our dominant sensory channel. For me, it's very much visual. And my least developed one is kinesthetic. I'm like a klutz, bumblefuts in the physical. And that's the least used channel of perception for me. And you can learn as you work with each one of these discreetly, which ones are strongest for you, which need more support in order for you to flesh it out literally and become more adept in that particular sensory arena. And to do that, you have to sort of break them down into separate ones to see which ones are more developed than others. To, for example, play with my favorite Aphrodite chocolates beyond all others is Vosges chocolates in Las Vegas. I asked my daughter, who is the archetype on this card, okay, Aphrodite, where are the best chocolates in the world made? She said, oh, bar none, Vosges chocolate in Las Vegas. So I trust her because she loves beauty and extreme refinement in virtually everything she does. So I'm clear that she's a good resource for those things. And you can get that level of refinement of chocolate and play with it as a consciousness game, to not look at what they're supposed to be. Check your taste and see whether you can really taste the nuances that are within that chocolate, whether it has cinnamon or anise or, whatnot. Or blindfold yourself or with someone else. This is very fun to do with somebody else. And smell various scents and see if you can tell just grossly what they are. I mean, my beloved scent priestess, holy oil sister, Diana Dubrow of the Emerald Temple, can tell you where the roses came from if it's a rose scent. It's Bulgarian rose or this or that. I mean, really extreme refinement in scent. That's obviously Diana's primary channel of perception. And we all have that. And it's very important for us to learn how to expand our awareness through these sensory channels and which ones are our primary channel, because that defines how we see reality most profoundly. I had the opportunity recently to hear a dear friend play music for me, and it was so transformative because I wasn't hearing the words, which I normally hear the words. I was just having sensory waves of sound wash over my body, and it was a totally different experience, sensorily speaking, for me. And somehow my channel just switched into more of a kinesthetic reception of the sound rather than auditory, hearing the words. So really experiment. Use this moon to experiment with the subtleties and the refinement of your senses. And you will be so glad you did, because it really affects your ability to receive clear, intuitive information. Practice especially slowing down the process of taking in any particular sense so that you can track the scent, sound, or taste to its expanded field of remembrance. And this is critical. When you slow way down, all of a sudden you can track the scent or the sound or the taste to its expanded field of remembrance and multidimensional awareness. All of a sudden you remember, I remember that scent. Where did that come from? And you remember you were 3 years old under your grandmother's lilac tree. That lilac scent just absolutely went into your nervous system, and you had a totally ecstatic experience with it. It gives you a lot of information, a lot of hooks and eyes to work with to remember things through the field of your senses, the scent or the taste, the expanded field of remembrance that will come as you start really focusing on the refinement of your senses instead of just having a sensory experience. Also, pay attention to the tuning of the whole sensory apparatus of your body as a vibrational receptor. In other words, seeing your body as a tuning fork in its totality. Imagine that. Now that's expansion. When you start looking at that, Be creative and feel how you would go about that kind of a tuning process, remembering that all acts of love and pleasure are for rituals. That's how you'll discover your whole body as a tuning fork that is a vibrational receptor of dimensional reality. And I say that in the mystery and with this little mischievous grin, of course, because we are meant to evolve through joy, through delight, through pleasure, through our senses. And I leave you with that today, with that expansion and that call to expansion, because I am totally committed to shifting the cultural paradigm that pain is gain, that really it is through our love and through our evolvement in joy and pleasure that we are intended to evolve and to really change the paradigm in this Aphrodite archetype. This is an incredibly pivotal archetype in reclaiming so much for the feminine and so much power. Pink is looked at as a wimpy color, and a lot of women just say, I'm not wearing pink because I'm just not going to get, into that disempowerment. And it has been used to disempower females, but that's not its intention in your world. It's in the intention of pink to vivify, lift up, bring you into harmony with the love of the universe. And so I leave you with the mudra of Aphrodite, which is putting your hands in your heart and generating that incredible feeling of love as you breathe into your heart. Love of all beings, the unconditional love of all beings, strongly to send it out to all beings on the sound aloha. Aloha.